Hollywood keeps remaking the wrong movies. Let's talk about the books and movies that actually deserve a great adaptation. Number 1. The Mists of Avalon. This is a fantasy miniseries released in 2001 based on the 1983 novel of the same name. As Christianity spreads, a priestess fights to protect the old Celtic ways, while the women behind Arthur's throne shape the kingdom's fate. Through ambition, faith, and magic, they influence the rise and fall of power. Their hidden struggles reveal a new side of the Arthurian legend. This is a 2-part miniseries, and it's only based on the first book of a series of novels that would make the perfect fantasy series. I mean, a bit like Game of Thrones, but with more magic, which is exactly what I miss from fantasy nowadays. I don't have much against this miniseries adaptation, except, yes, I wish it was a whole series covering the entire book series. And also, it's a bit outdated, so I'm thinking about how it would look like now with the new technology that we have. And if only writers took into consideration the original material, this would be awesome. And I'm saying this as a true fan of the book series, because back in the day when I used to read tons and tons of books, I was obsessed with this series, and I don't really know if I would be as happy now to see it as I was back in the day, because I was maybe 15 or even younger when I read them. But all I can remember is that I loved the atmosphere. I loved the entire moon magic, and if you haven't noticed yet, I'm quite obsessed by the moon. And I think in the books they really developed well the magic system. And honestly, it could also be about something else and not Arthur or the Arthurian legend, but it is part of the story. So if someone in Hollywood really needs to remake something, this should be it. Number 2. Brave New World. This is a sci-fi drama series released in 2020, and it's loosely based on the classic novel from 1932 of the same name. In a tightly controlled utopia where monogamy, privacy, and individuality are forbidden, citizens are conditioned to embrace a collective life. As some begin to question the rules, cracks form in the illusion of perfection. Forbidden love and rebellion threaten to upend the fragile order. We only got 1 season of this, and then it was cancelled. And in this case, I think it was cancelled because nobody watched it, since nobody knew this series even existed. I mean, it was released on Peacock. First and foremost, it's their fault if nobody knows about this series and if it has been cancelled. But I mean, in this day and age, we definitely need a new Brave New World adaptation if they don't want to keep going with that series. Because, I mean, look at the world we are living in. People need to listen the message from Aldous Huxley. If they're not reading the book, maybe watching a series or a movie about it might help. If you're one of the few souls who watched it, please let me know in the comments. Number 3. 1984. This is a dystopian movie from 1984 based on George Orwell's novel. In a totalitarian society, Winston Smith secretly rebels against a regime that controls truth and rewrites history. His forbidden love with Julia offers a brief escape, but under constant surveillance, freedom is an illusion. As the state tightens its grip, betrayal and loss become inevitable. I just remember that I didn't really like this movie, but I cannot tell you why exactly. And I read the book back in the day, I think in high school, and yes, it was traumatizing, but as a linguist, I really appreciate a story like this in which language plays such a significant role, and this story can teach us so much. I know that the story is well known, is popular enough, but are people even listening to the message? I don't know. And that's why I think a remake of 1984 could be a good idea. And maybe I'd like it to be more like Equilibrium, if you have watched it, which is actually inspired by both Brave New World and 1984. And I mean, again, living in these times, at the time of this recording, it's early 2025, and we really need to stop and think. Number 4, The Speed of Thought. This is a sci-fi thriller released in 2011. Joshua, a telepath working for the government, falls in love with Anna, an untrained telepath like him. When their plan to escape is discovered, they are separated, forcing Joshua to confront the truth about his abilities and the corruption around him. With the future at stake, he must fight for the freedom and his own. This could be considered a decent movie, but it has a lot of flaws as well. I've seen worse, but it's such a pity that this movie missed the mark. And I mean, poor special effects, the writing is debatable, and from such a story, from such a premise, we could get so much more. And in a way, this one reminds me of Push, which was way better actually. And I don't even know who watched this movie. It went pretty unnoticed, I believe, but it's again a pity because of the story that it could have been, and that's why I wish they made some kind of other adaptation, a remake. No need for it to be a whole series, but you know. Number 5, The Dark Tower. This is a neo-Western sci-fi adventure fantasy released in 2017 and loosely based on Stephen King's novel of the same name. A boy plagued by visions of a dark tower joins Roland, the last gunslinger, to stop the Men in Black from destroying it. If the tower falls, chaos will consume the universe, opening the gates of hell. With worlds at stake, they face a final battle between good and evil. This is infamous for how it's been adapted, because too many people worked on this project, and so you get too many different points of view. The story itself was butchered, and on top of that, they failed at marketing. Not only the release itself, but also they aimed at the wrong audience, I think, because this is exactly the type of story I want to watch, but I had no idea what it was. And yes, of course, the execution is miserable because you miss so many details, you don't understand the plot, it doesn't really make sense. And that's their fault, of course, but also if they had marketed this story for people like me who love dystopia, who love fantasy, sci-fi, thrillers, I mean, they even wasted a brilliant cast because they were given a messy script to work with. And so if someone in Hollywood really wants to remake something, please remake The Dark Tower. And since the original material is a series and not one novel only, why don't you make it into a series, huh? Number 6, Mortal Engines. This is a post-apocalyptic steampunk released in 2018, based on the 2001 novel of the same name. In a post-apocalyptic world where cities move on giant wheels and consume each other, Hester seeks revenge against London, the most powerful predator. She teams up with Tom, an outcast, and Anna, a rebel, to stop a deadly conspiracy. As London prepares to destroy everything in its path, they fight to change the future. Such a disappointment, this one, because the premise is awesome, it's genius. I want to see a story like this developed with this steampunk style. I want to see a world in which cities are moving and what that entails. The problem with this one, well, there are so many problems with this release and why it failed, but one of them is that they tried to do too much with so little time. So in just one movie, they tried to open an entire world, and they also used too much budget, so they wasted a lot of money on a project that wasn't well developed. And that's such a pity because, I mean, if only we could get proper storytelling, a well-balanced story, or switch it into a series instead, maybe. Then you can do all of that all of that the premise was promising to us. And instead, we got something that simply failed, and that's awful. I want to see it again, made by someone else maybe. Number 7, Tales from Earthsea. This is a Japanese anime epic fantasy released in 2006 based on a combination of different novels. As Earthsea falls into chaos, Sparrowhawk, a powerful wizard, teams up with a troubled prince to stop a dangerous enemy. Together they uncover a threat that could destroy their world. With help from allies, they must fight to restore balance. This is not even the only adaptation that we have for this story. There's also a mini-series, which I have yet to watch, I think. But this movie is infamous for being the directorial debut of Goro Miyazaki, and again, unfortunately, it missed the mark. There was so much potential, and the story was way too big to be told in just one movie, as they tried to do with this specific script. But since there is so much potential and there is so much story to be told, someone else should adapt it again. And yes, even though I haven't watched the miniseries, I have never heard anybody saying something good about it either. So I don't have high expectations, let's say. But I remember watching the movie and thinking, is this just the first of a series, or how can the story wrap up in just one movie? And in fact, it didn't really make much sense. Number 8, Upside Down. This is a romantic science fantasy released in 2012. Adam and Eden live on twin worlds with opposite gravities, making their love impossible. After being separated for 10 years, Adam risks everything to find a way back to her. Defying the laws of their worlds, he fights to reunite with his lost love. Towards the beginning of this movie, you can see the male protagonist working in cubicles that really remind me of Severance, even though the structure is different and so on, but it gave me the idea of maybe there is some potential for a retelling of this story, but with a Severance kind of twist or feel to it, you know what I mean? And the premise of the story is genius. So what would it be to live in two different worlds that have opposite gravities? There are so many ways in which you can develop this story and make it truly enjoyable with proper storytelling and writing, and yet they failed. I mean, I still love this movie in a way, but I think that the idea itself, the premise, is underrated and needs to be developed properly by someone else, maybe, I don't know. Number 9, Eragon. This is a fantasy adventure movie released in 2006 and loosely based on Christopher Paolini's 2002 novel of the same name. Eragon, a poor farm boy, discovers a dragon's egg that changes his life. As the dragon hatches, Eragon learns he's the only one who can stop the evil king. With his new companion, he must fight to save his homeland and restore its legendary dragon riders. To be honest, all the recent releases that feature dragons have been disappointing. And I was even thinking about making a whole video about that the fact that I miss dragons and dragon stories. And this is a well-known case of a terrible adaptation. And again, I'm quite biased because just like the Mists of Avalon, this was a book series that I read when I was, I don't know, probably the same age as the author or something, who was 15 when he wrote Eragon. And I remember loving the whole use of language that has a certain type of power, so that words, actions are real, have the power of making something true. And words are the essence of an element, which is something that makes me think of Hebrew. But that's a whole discussion. It doesn't belong here, but as a linguist, that's where my mind goes. And I remember loving this story. I was young when I read it, but still, I wish someone could tell it properly, or even improve it, if that is what is needed for Eragon to work. But I think I have lost hope on this one. Again, being the #1 case that is now shown for what not to do or how not to adapt a story. Number 10. The Witcher. This is a fantasy drama series initially released in 2019 and is still ongoing. And it's based on the book series by Polish author Andrzej Sapkowski. Geralt of Rivia, a mutated monster hunter, battles vicious creatures while facing the darker side of humanity. As he navigates a world where people are often more dangerous than beasts, he struggles to find his purpose. His journey forces him to question what truly makes a monster. I've talked about this one before, and I'm still bitter about it because, number one, I think that the upcoming season is not worth anybody's time. I agree with Henry Cavill. We should no longer support this series since he left it for a reason. I mean, he never said we don't have to support it, but if you know the whole drama behind it, you understand what I mean. I have lost hope with this one as well because, well, first, there is still a series that is being made about this story, but it's taking a completely different direction. When it comes to the original material, they don't have anything in common anymore. It doesn't really make any sense, and I think it's outrageous. But, you know, some are simply happy that at least we still have the video game and that is good enough for them. It's not good enough for me, though, because I was so happy when I first watched The Witcher Season 1. Then Season 2 was already a bit odd, and Season 3, let's not talk about it, please. But it's such a disappointment because I loved the story, and most importantly, I loved Henry Cavill as the protagonist of this story, which is why I don't want to see anything else about this series, because come on. But yeah, I'm so disappointed. And now I want to know, what would you like to see being remade or adapted properly for once? Please let me know in the comments because I cannot be alone in this fight, please. And now that you know about this, check out my best streaming platform of 2025. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you won't miss my upcoming videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.